Mr. Peterbottom will be with you shortly. What a dumb name. I thought to myself. I sat in a crusty old room waiting for my interview. The front desk attendant was apparently acting as his de facto secretary at the moment. I'd been an electrician for about 5 years by this time and had gained a bit of local reputation as a solid tradesman. A friend of mine tagged me in an ad saying a local hotel owner needed some help remodeling a property he just bought. Up to this point, I had done mainly residential work on all kinds of different homes. I had not done much of what you would call commercial work. 5 years is kind of the magic number for saying you've seen pretty much everything in the electrical world, to be honest. I was getting a little bored with getting house calls about how lights were not working, only to make a 30-minute drive that involved me flipping a breaker switch. $60 for a house call like that is easy money. But it dulls the brain. This old hotel project promised something new. There were sure to be different challenges, and even if some of the stuff wasn't a challenge, it would at least be a welcome variance from the monotony of flipping breaker switches. Mr. Peterbottom ambled in the room. Well, really, he kind of waddled. He was slightly overweight but had the body language of a 400-pound man. His forehead wrinkles were exaggerated for his age. His large nose stuck out like a cartoon character and ended with a bump on the very edge. I would later notice that as his stress levels got higher, the bump would become more red, probably due to him picking at it as a nervous habit. His small spectacles stayed at the end of his nose since the lenses were too close together to properly fit across the wide bridge. For a second, I thought I was being too harsh. When I'm that old, I probably won't be much to look at it either. In fact, in my mid-20 seconds, I'm not much to look at right now anyways. Mr. Peterbottom stared at a paper with a slightly condescending look. At a certain angle, I could see it was my resume. I see. You think you're the right person for the job, do you? He asked, as good as anyone else could hope to be. I don't see any commercial work on your past experience. That's not a big deal. I told him, there is a lot of similarities between residential and commercial. The scale is slightly bigger is all, for those in the know. That's not exactly the truth, but without getting too technical here, it was close enough. The important thing was that old Mr. Peterbottom probably wouldn't know the difference either. Very well, follow me. We walked into his office, a cramped room immediately behind the reception desk. There was exactly enough room for his chair and a desk. The small chair that meant for people who were visiting with him actually blocked the door from opening all the way, keeping the door at a 45-degree angle as the widest it could hope to be when someone came in. This proved to be a little bit of an obstacle for Mr. Peterbottom's wide body as he entered ahead of me. As you know, I bought this place last month and now I'm in the process of fixing it up to a good condition. I surveyed my surroundings again and noted what I thought was mold around one of the vents. This place needed an electrician, all right. It also needed an HVAC guy, a plumber, a mold specialist, a carpenter, and a demolition crew as well. There's been a couple snags in my plans though. We are very far behind in the progress I originally set out to make. We keep hitting road bump after road bump. I wondered if it was really necessary for me to hear the whole backstory or if I just needed to get his statement of work and go from there. There are things here that I cannot explain. This made my ears perk up a little. Things that may not be easily explained by anyone really. Some of our long-term guests here complain of leaks, but when it is investigated, there are no leaks. People complain of lights not working, but when we go there the lights are fine. People say the heat blasts higher than normal or that the temperature dips to freezing levels suddenly without explanation, but by the time we walk back to the room, it's normal again. I wondered why I was being told the whole story and not just the statement of work. I need someone with a little discretion. What do you mean discretion? I asked. I mean someone who can work in an environment that may defy some of the natural laws of science or explanation. I was close to walking out. This guy wasn't really blaming the typical bad attributes of an aging property on the supernatural, was he? This may have been a waste of my time after all. I mean ghosts. He said deadpan. There it was. He was absolutely crazy. People think of crazies as someone in a straitjacket or the guy on the street corner yelling at cars. Really, they are the people who outwardly are just like you and me in everyday life, but inside there is something way different going on. This seemed to be the case with Mr. Peterbottom. Mr. Peterbottom, I'm not sure if I am your guy. We can work through the gaps in commercial experience, but ghosts are kind of above my forte on the best of days. How do you know it's ghosts? And not just the quirks of an old property. I know the difference. I've worked with old properties since before you were born, but this is different, much different. I was very skeptical like you in the beginning as well. You don't get to be where I am by believing in a bunch of hoopla and hearsay. You have to have a good head on your shoulders, lots of common sense, and be a practical, nay pragmatic, person. This is ghosts. I tell you, ghosts like you've never seen. That was appropriate because I'd never seen a ghost before. Listen, I have proof. Well, now the situation progressed too well to not stick around. Proof? I asked. Yes, here. He slid out a drawer and took out a photo from a manila envelope. It was a grainy black and white photo of one of the hallways, resembling a still shot of some security footage. I saw the typical 2 rows of doors on either side of the hallway and the classic outdated carpet. There looked to be one guy walking by himself toward the camera, which meant he was heading to the front door exit. There was no alarm on his face. It was just a neutral expression, like the guy was ready to start a normal day. Do you see it? Mr. Peterbottom asked. Obviously. I didn't, but I wasn't sure how to convey this without being too crass. I let the silence speak for itself. There it is. He pointed to a place further down the hall away from the guest. It was a small outline of a human-like figure. This is the thing that is causing all the trouble. What am I to do? I didn't have an answer for him. In fact, I was asking myself the very same question. I didn't see what he was referring to at all. Why was I even called into this interview? There was nothing an electrician could do about any of the issues he had talked about so far. It was time for me to cut my losses and move on before they actually became losses. Mr. Peterbottom, I appreciate you bringing me in here, but I don't think I am the person you are looking for. I'm an electrician, not a ghost hunter. I work on making power flow through, and that's about it. I don't do anything with or about ghosts. I'm not even sure if I believe in them, honestly. If you need a little extra help on the electrical side, I'd be more than willing to come chip in. But right now it seems like you're still figuring some stuff out. I can draw up a statement of work if you don't have one, or I can. He cut me off quickly. $40 an hour. He said it so calmly. That was about 50% more than what I usually made. I stared at him, waiting for the inevitable burst of laughter. There had to be a camera somewhere. This was a great prank him and his business buddies probably played on lots of employees. $40 an hour. All the flexibility you want, and even a free room as a live-in handyman. That was a heck of a deal. Free rent sounded awesome to someone who was paying close to $1,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. A hotel room was essentially the same thing. But free is sweeter, especially when you consider the pay bump that might come with it. Mr. Peterbottom, I started. The only thing I ask is discretion. No one can know the true reason why these things are happening. No one. We are working on getting the ghost. But until then, I need this business to stand on its own 2 feet. I thought about going public with this info, but I'm afraid it would cause too much attention. Any increased business from wannabe ghost hunters would be offset by the loss of all the regular customers. It's no good for any of us. I sat there trying to digest all this new information. There was quite a lot going on. At the very least, I thought this was an old man who was losing his grip on reality. Maybe it was old age. Maybe it was all the mold in the vents. Maybe it was something else entirely. Either way, $40 an hour was kind of hard to turn down for a job that I would probably be able to coast through if numerous previous electricians had tried and failed. I'm sure I could take my time with everything and blame any setbacks on the ghost. Okay, I said, let's do this. Wonderful, he said. This was the most chipper I've seen him so far. He went right into all the details of the job. Hours, scope of work, everything. All the boring stuff. My room number would be 631. One of the furthest away on the top floor. You couldn't find a less convenient walking distance for a room. But it was free, so I had little room to complain. I packed my bags and left my little 1-bedroom apartment for the 1-room suite in the hotel. It had everything I needed. A fridge, microwave, dishes, sink, bathroom, closet, couch. It even had a kitchen table squeezed in, which I didn't have in my old apartment. It didn't take long to unpack and settle in since I didn't have a lot in the first place. That first night, the place was freezing. I thought again about how this place needed a lot of different professionals to help turn this place around. I wasn't always the smartest one money-wise. But I wondered, at what point do businessmen decide this just isn't worth the trouble and abandon projects? This guy must be really loaded or just dumb. The dividing lines were not always mutually exclusive. I crashed on the couch watching some of the free cable television that places like this are so proud of that they think it's good enough to highlight right next to the no vacancy sign. 2:55 a.m. I woke up absolutely freezing. The light from the outside street lamps were casting a dull golden tint through the blind. From that, I could see my breath as clear as if I was walking around outside during a snowy day. I got up and went to the thermostat. It said 49 degrees. This had to be criminal. I checked in with the front desk and they said they'd already gotten several complaints from that side of the building and only that side of the building. Then the front desk attendant sneered. Isn't this your job? Shouldn't you, be doing something about this? It was a little too late to argue that an electrician is not an HVAC technician. I curtly denied the responsibility as out of my scope and started walking back toward my room. My eyes were half matted down with sleep as I slogged through the hallways. But just in front of me was someone walking. They were matching my stride, cadence, and everything. I stopped for a second, my mind only half registering how weird it was. But when I stopped, they stopped too. They didn't make any movements to look for their room key or search their pockets or look at their phone. They just stood there. Their back to me, not moving, slightly hunched over like I was in my sleepy state. My head tilted sideways just a little bit like a dog when it's confused. The person in front of me did the same. My eyebrows raised with suspicion and my heart started to pick up a little. There was no way this guy could see me. There was no reflection from glass, any mirrors, or anything of that sort for him to be able to see and mimic me. What the hell? Am I going crazy here? I thought to myself. I turned around to look down the other part of the hallway behind to see if this was some kind of a joke on the new guy from the staff. It was empty all the way down. I turned back around and the guy who was standing there just a few moments ago was nowhere to be found. I didn't hear any doors closing, elevators ringing, or even footsteps fading. I decided right there the best thing to do was to get to my room ASAP so I could get a good night's sleep and stop hallucinating. Morning came like a bolt of lightning. I woke up definitely not feeling refreshed or well rested. But the day was starting soon and I wanted to make a good impression for the first day on the job. Walking out of the bedroom into the living room, kitchen portion of the room, I dug around for some of the food I had brought from my last apartment. I scrounged up some waffles and coffee, turned toward the small table to sit down. I had to stop for a second. There on the table was a piece of paper with neat cursive handwriting. That definitely wasn't there yesterday evening or even in the middle of the night when I went to the front desk. Did Mr. Peterbottom sneak into my room? Or maybe it was the front desk playing with me last night. Either way, I didn't like it. I sat down to see what it said. Nonetheless, the note read, "Hello, it's been so long since I had a friend come and visit. Welcome to Hotel by the Springs. More specifically, welcome to my room. I am willing to share this space in the wider building, but there are some ground rules you must follow. I'll do my part as you do yours as well. Please take this seriously. As a fellow professional in our line of work, you know how serious it can be if someone doesn't follow the rules. I won't waste any more of your time since we have a mutual understanding. Here they are. 1. The electrical closet is only available from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. All other times, it will be my personal space and mine alone. I don't handle it well when people go in my personal space without my permission. You will know when you have it. 2. Thermostats are meant to be low at night and high in the daytime. I like the cold. It reminds me of home. Unfortunately, this sometimes inconveniences people, but they are guests and have the option to check out anytime they like. This is my home, and I will run it as I see fit. Do not attempt to turn the heat up high at night. It's very rude. 3. Playing games is good for the heart." The note ended there. I didn't know whether to chuckle, be mad about the lack of invasion of privacy, or what. One thing was for sure, I would be using the deadbolt at the top of the door to stop anyone from using a key to get unauthorized access to this room. Although this wouldn't solve the issue of being able to secure the room when I wasn't inside. I would just have to deal with that as it came up. For now, I needed to directly address this note. I took it downstairs to the front desk again. It was a different person this time, in the wee hours of the morning. It was a sarcastic college student who could probably care less about keeping the job. Now, in the more reasonable morning hours, it was a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed young woman whose eyes radiated the kind of energy you never understood people having first thing in the morning. "Hi," she exclaimed as I approached. "Hi," I said, slightly off-put by the energetic greeting. "You're the new guy, aren't you? Wow, it's so great to meet you. We need someone around here like really bad." She sounded like she was about to go into a whole thing when I stopped her. "You guys like practical jokes here, huh?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean the guy last night in the hallway and then the note this morning. How did you even get into my room?" "I don't know what you're talking about." She was slowly becoming deflated. There was an honesty in her answer. I figured I might be going for the wrong person and didn't want to instantly start making enemies by coming off too harsh, especially to someone who may not even be involved in the pranks. "Is Mr. Peterbottom around?" I asked. "Oh no, he usually only drops in once a week. He has other properties and places to be. This is only one of his many." Her smile slightly faded. I could tell that might be a point of contention for the staff for a whole bunch of different reasons. "Who is the hotel manager?" A blank look ensued. The conversation seemed to be derailing quickly. "We're actually in between managers right now. Most of us know our jobs pretty well and just seem to click overall, so there isn't too much of a hierarchy. When guests call into the front desk, I contact the appropriate person for the problem and they handle it. Who do I answer to? She looked affronted by the question. She just explained the process here and the lack of hierarchy, and here I was asking for the hierarchy. No one really. You just kind of do what needs to be done. This sounded like a setup. There was definitely a lot less direction here than I thought there would be, as someone who did a little better with more structure. This was not ideal for several reasons. I had asked for this job though and gotten everything I wanted so far. So I guess it was expected to have a little give and take. If it was too easy, someone would have jumped on it a lot sooner. That led me to my next question. Say, what happened to the last electrician? I'm not sure really. He just kind of stopped showing up one day. He was getting a little crazy near the end anyways, always walking the halls at weird hours, talking to himself in front of guests in the not most guest-friendly ways. A few other things. He got shocked badly one time and was hospitalized for a short time. Some of us thought he may have had some mental issues as a result of that, but we never knew for sure. Then he just stopped coming down. Yeah, he never checked out, resigned, formally quit, or anything like that. When we went to check on him, all his stuff was still there. We never saw him leave the hotel or his hotel room. But he was gone. Never called, wrote, emailed, or anything. I laughed in my head. This was the ghost Mr. Peterbottom must have referred to. I've heard of similar things. A Target employee gets the boot and lives in the store for years after being fired as a way of getting back at them, or a homeless vet uses their survival and camouflage skills to camp out in plain sight for years in a warehouse or other big retailer. I wonder how this old electrician was making his life in the confines of a heavily videoed hotel. Okay, I guess I better get to work then. I'd love to hear more about this guy later though. I laughed. But first, do you know where the keys and equipment rooms are? She explained how key sign out and everything worked. I even got my own master key that let me into all the supply rooms, electrical closets, and guests' rooms. I stopped for a minute. Rule number 1 popped in my head. I checked my watch to humor myself. 9:30 a.m. Plenty of time before the curfew from the note. I'd also reminded to follow up later on who else was around, since there was no overall management. It was up to me to meet and greet my fellow hotel workers. Since I was walking into this blind, I figured the first thing to do was to inspect the current conditions, wiring work, and other technical details I won't bore you with here. It all kind of checked out. Some things were near the end of their natural life cycle, but nothing too pressing. I made a list of things that would need to be ordered. I'm sure it would help with the energy bills when things became a little more efficient. I checked my watch near the end of the day. 8:25 p.m. Where did the time go? I wondered. I had only inspected about half the building. The other half would have to be done tomorrow. As for now, it was time to put everything up. I was sure Mr. Peterbottom would be happy to hear about my progress. I would also be happy too. But more about the paycheck. $40 an hour for almost 12 hours. For the work put in today. It seemed too good to be true. On that note, I also wondered how I logged hours. Did he just take my word? Surely not. Did I just miss out on a whole day's wages by not documenting properly? I wouldn't let that happen. All this was going through my head so fast I walked right past the equipment room and had to double back. When I turned around, there he was again. His back was to me just like last time. I scanned around a lot more quickly. No reflective surfaces or any way he could see me. This must be an elaborate prank with an earpiece and others watching me on the cameras. It also struck me at that moment I hadn't run into any employees besides the front desk woman from earlier. I joked in my head they must all be taking advantage of the honor system of logging hours in the absence of a central manager. Either that or they were so busy setting this up so I wouldn't recognize them in the hallway when they pulled this stunt again. This was way better than last time. He was wearing clothes similar to mine and a tool belt with all the standard tools. I like to wear my hard hat cocked up a little to kind of make fun of the rules mandating it. I really only usually wore it for the headlamp anyways. But this guy was wearing it the exact same way. They had to have seen me on the cameras before setting this up. Hey, I yelled. No movement. Hey, you in the hard hat. Are you here to help? Still no movement. I walked a couple steps closer. He walked in tandem the same amount of steps, stopping exactly when I stopped on the same foot at the same time. This was starting to freak me out. The amount of practice and coordination of this prank would take some dedication. As a gotcha and a challenge, I lifted up my left leg at a 90-degree angle like someone practicing a karate stance. The guy in front of me did the same at the same speed and wobbliness. No way, I thought. I'm going to catch this guy. I ran off in a dead sprint toward him. He lowered his leg and ran at the same time as I did, moving just as fast as me. It was a long hallway, but I was sure I could get him a little after turning the corner. I ran and ran but didn't get any closer. He was getting closer to the corner where the hallway turned at a 90-degree angle. I was sure I would probably lose him as soon as he went out of sight, just like last time. But something even stranger happened. I continued to go straight, and so did he. Right through the wall. He never turned toward the opening of the next hallway or even slowed down. He plowed right into the wall. Right through it. The wall showed no physical signs of absorbing him. No weird ripples like he went to another dimension like you see in the movies or anything like that. He was just gone. After seeing that, my heart went from racing as a result of the sprint to going to a dead stillness. I was so shocked, I literally passed out. I woke up to two people shaking me and trying to talk to me. I woke up clearly dazed. "He's awake," I heard one of them say. "What happened?" I asked. "You got shocked working on a light." No, I didn't. There was someone. He was wearing what I was wearing. I went after him and he went through the wall. No, my friend, your tools and everything are right there. You got shocked so bad you were lifted back off your step ladder. It looks like you might have hit your head. Do you want us to call an ambulance? I looked around. There was a small step ladder against the wall right below a small electrical box. The electrical box was open with a switch taken out and wires exposed. I would never do something like that. I also knew better than to not kill the power to a source before working on it. What was going on here? This was beyond a reasonable prank now. I checked my watch. 10:15 p.m. How long have I been here on the floor? We just watched it happen 5 minutes ago. What? No, it was just 8-something. I was about to put my equipment up. I really think you should see a doctor. No, I'm all right. This happens sometimes. That seems like more of a reason to go to the doctor. One of the guys said. I couldn't argue with the logic, but I would resist anyways. Eventually they relented. I closed the electrical box and locked it. They seemed placated enough to leave me alone after that and walked toward their rooms. When I heard the heavy hotel room door slam around the corner, I made my way back to the equipment room. My hand hesitated at the door. 1. The electrical closet is only available from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. All other times, it will be my personal space and mine alone. I don't handle it well when people go in my personal space without my permission. You will know when you have it. The equipment room also doubled as an electrical closet for this floor. Should I go somewhere else? Maybe keep it in my room for the night. No one else would need these specific tools before the morning, and then I would be using them all day again tomorrow. No. That's silly, I battled in my head. I can't be scared off by some dumb prank. I opened the door confidently. Yet sure, someone would yell out how I broke the rules. Nothing happened. No crazy ghosts running through the walls. No alarms and buzzes, nothing. I found a slight humor in how I worked myself up right before opening the door. It was all in my mind. There is nothing to fear. I put everything in its place with a renewed confidence and headed out back to my room, semi-expecting another wild tangent en route. Once again, nothing. Tomorrow was a long day. So I hurried through my night routine and went to bed. 2:55 a.m. The cold was bone-shattering. I looked at the thermostat. 36 degrees. This made zero sense. It wasn't even that cold outside. Someone was doing this on purpose. I checked the deadbolt on the top of the door again to make sure no one snuck in somehow. It was still in place. Screw this, I thought. I started pushing the up button on the thermostat as much as I could. The set to number reached 70 by the time I was done readjusting it. I heard a large metallic clank and the HVAC system roared to life. The typical smell of dust burning when the heater hasn't been turned on in a while filled the room. I felt the air coming out of the vent. It was still ice cold but wanting to warm up. I put on a light jacket and crawled back in bed, dozing while I shivered a little. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes when I heard a terrible sound. I shot up instantly, checking the clock on my phone. 2:15 a.m. What the hell? I was sure it had to be later than that. I thought for a minute. A power outage wouldn't affect my phone like it would a plugged-in alarm clock. The clock on the wall was operated by batteries and said 2:15 a.m. as well. Did I oversleep by a full 24 hours? Just then, I heard a shrilling laughter, made all the weirder by the fact that it was a man's laughter but was still at such an unnaturally high pitch. I got out of bed cautiously as I approached the bedroom door that connected to the living room kitchen area. The laughter got louder. Someone was in the hotel room with me. Who could it be? I didn't recognize the person making the noise. I looked around for a weapon before I opened the door. I didn't really have anything since I packed so light when moving in. I worked up the courage for a minute, knowing this would probably have to be a fist fight and praying the other guy didn't have a weapon of his own. Hopefully this was just the crescendo of the prank. I tore open the door not knowing what to expect. There on the couch was the someone just sitting there. A man who was exactly my height and everything. It took a minute for my eyes to adjust. When I looked at his face, I saw my face. Hello, he said. He resembled me in every way but my voice. I told you I like games. Do you like this one? I don't know who you are, but you need to leave now. I've been trying to leave for a long time. But now I finally figured it out. Figured what out? The door is right there. Just leave. It's not that simple. I need a replacement. But what? You see. She won't let me leave unless I have someone who can take my place. Are you high? And now you're here. You didn't play according to the rules. Now it's your turn. What rules are you talking about? Who is this she you're talking about? You will meet her soon enough if she wants. You guys may even just talk for forever. You need to leave right now. The man grabbed me by both shoulders before I could make a move. He stared deep into my eyes with a big toothy smile. He then rocked his head back in what I thought was a giant yawn, but his mouth continued to widen and widen, his jaws unlatching like a snake. I felt an intense iciness hit me. My soul was being sucked out very slowly. I started to freak out and resisted as hard as I could. But there was no budging. The world around me started to swirl in a vertical motion. It looked like I was in a gray warp tunnel that kept spinning faster and faster. The man made no sound. The warp tunnel made no sound. It was complete silence, a deafening silence, out of my peripheral. I saw a sleek woman wearing a long dress. It was the kind you would expect at a ball or formal gala. She walked from the side to in front of me. "Hello," she calmly said. "Congratulations on your selection." She was hypnotizing. The warp tunnel turned purple wherever she walked, making a large contrast against the gray. "You are mine now. You are mine until the time you find me a replacement. But you are mine now. I've played this little game for centuries. Many people have come through these lands. Native Americans, Italians, Spaniards, some French, the English, and now the Americans. When the Americans are gone and the next crop comes, I will still be here playing my game ... and you may be here with me as well. I collect souls like yours for fun. They never take the game seriously and always fail. The technology changes. The building and people change. Over time, the language changes. But the basic premise is always the same. I am merciful. So I will allow you to set your own rules. But here are my rules. You must design a game for our next victim. A few simple ones will do. The simpler they are, the more likely they are to not complete them. You humans have that going for you for some reason. The more detailed the rules, typically the more likely you are to find someone compliant and less likely you are to be released from my game. Your soul will be trapped in this building until the building is torn down or you find the next person. Think of it as a cosmological form of tag that you played as a child, or better yet, Simon says. However, you think of it does not bother me. I will have my fun either way. The man holding my shoulders released me. I stopped looking at the woman explaining her cruel game and turned to him. His mouth was slowly closing. I assumed he was getting ready to leave his paranormal prison a much happier camper than I as his head came back together. He no longer looked like me. He was himself again, a gruff-looking older man about 40 years old dressed in clothes from the 1960s. I could imagine it now. He found some note with dumb rules and just laughed it off. He probably never gave it all the anxious thought I did. He probably never gave it a second thought either, like I had kept it on my mind. He looked at me with genuine concern, leaned in, and said, "I'm sorry, but thank you." With that, his body began forming puzzle pieces that broke at the edges, blurring away as they detached. The outline of his body got smaller and smaller until he was no more. I don't know where he went or how long he had been there, but he was gone now. It was just the woman and I now. She beamed with excitement the way a kid looks at a new toy. "Watch this," she said, and directed my attention to a break in the warp tunnel. I could Mr. Peterbottom and the front desk woman from earlier. They were in my hotel room. "I'm sorry, sir. I tried calling him for 2 days. We had to get the police because the deadbolt was on the door and we needed help opening it. I could see the door was removed." "That's quite all right. There is nothing more we can do." He must not have liked the job very much, I suppose. It still would have been nice to get some sort of a heads up before he left, and I'm not sure how he did the deadbolt while leaving, but that was an extra insult. Rest assured, I will pass the word around. He will never work in this town again. I wanted to scream out for help but knew it would be in vain. The woman next to me smirked, almost as if she could read my thoughts. I felt helpless and alone. "You are not alone." That jolted me. Could she read my feelings and my thoughts? "You are with me now. You will feel no hunger, no pain, and no want, except maybe the want to return to your human world." I've settled into my new existence slowly. I thought of rules to get others to play by but couldn't fully decide. I was always racked by guilt about the thought of sentencing someone else to this existence. So now I wait. I have limited contact and interaction with the outside world. Haunting Mr. Peterbottom is a nice hobby, causing lights to go off when he has important guests over, misplacing papers, and randomly causing wrinkles in the carpet so he trips the usual ghostly antics. Today there has been a little more energy in the air. I'm not sure what's happening at first. I float on over to Mr. Peterbottom's office. There is a nicely dressed man sitting across from Mr. Peterbottom. I slowly make my way around to see his face. Yes, Mr. Peterbottom. This is the place I want to work. I have a very special connection to it. It's like there is a certain energy to it just waiting to be released. I believe I can release that energy. Well, you are certainly qualified. Perhaps overqualified, Mr. Peterbottom said hesitantly. But I think you will do quite well. As the interviewee's face came into view, I froze. It was the man who was in my hotel room that night. The one who had made the rules for my game and captured me in exchange for his own release. What was he doing here? Yes. I have a lot of plans for this place, he smiled.